I realize there is a lot to take in, so we'll cover it step by step. Easiest part, here's those sandbags I spoke of earlier. I can use them here as stabilizers. I really don't need them, but just in case, if I'm like in fast moving water or something, I can lay these down onto the matting or lay them into the on the edges of the things here. So when I first get started, this is not getting washed away. That's basically it. These are the little things for your shoes that I was telling you about. Okay. Again, the same as with the multi-sluice. I made smaller legs because this will not angle as high, but the same configuration for stability. I made these little clips. See if I can get this off with one hand, because I made them fairly good form fitting. And what it allows me to do, I've got several of these. I can, you notice how one end flares out a little bit? That's so that I can get underneath it when I want to take it off. And these I can use to level out my water flow. See here? Levels down, it hits this, comes over, and then it goes back into the more aggressive matting again. I could put another one down in the bedrock or somewhere. But this allows, when this gets all turbulent, comes in, the first thing it does is it gets evened out over here. This will get moved higher up to here. I just have it here so as an example. But it'll get here, so as this comes in, that will smooth it out. It will run down. Boom, boom, boom. It hits the wave. And all of these are 3-sectional mats. I explained that in the matting earlier. Okay. We have the box. The box has a couple of different components to it. We have a slide bar so I can raise and lower this at an angle. Screws to tighten. And this is where this comes into play. Let me grab it real quick here. I made this. And what that does, because all of my wing nuts and everything are 5mm, all I have to do, because this is on the back, the divot, all I have to do is run that in, and I can loosen or tighten it as I need to, simply by holding the other wing nut on the inside. This is especially good once you have your leg set. You can crank that leg down and get it nice and tight, and it's not going to move on you. Just that simple. Okay? So, just a piece of aluminum. I have a tie lanyard, and this hangs off the side, so it's right there when I need it. And that's what I did with that. So the second section, dang it, I just ripped my pants. The second section is simply a piece of aluminum bent to width and height to match the other one. Okay, this is run down. It's got the same leg set up as the other one. Runs down to, again, another wing nut. It goes through here. This is caught at a slight degree. That allows this to angle and move, but it doesn't just pop right out. Because of the angling, it makes it more stable. You've literally got to angle this to take it off. Otherwise, it's not going to come out that easy. And that's it for the body. Okay, this one piece is the major key piece to the entire body. And putting these screws in down at the bottom. This is the multi-sluice right here. This whole thing is the same multi-sluice as before. I've simply changed the matting, added this, and that's it. We come up here. This is where things start getting interesting. This, again, tilts. You see here, here's my sprayer. I can attach my hose here. It comes down around, and I've got a little hook that hangs here, so my hose comes around and does not get involved in this. This is 6mm 6mm rod. I would have preferred to pop rivet, but I could not find 3mm pop rivets that were long enough, so I had to screw these in. And these are subsunk, screwed in, Gorilla glued, and then the bottom is peened. They're not coming off. This is a secondary splash guard, and make sure that anything that may come up over here comes right back down inside. Okay, and once again, these are held on with those little clips that I made. Just a piece of aluminum bent. One end's a little longer than the other one and bent out, so I can get a hold to it to get it out if I need to. Now those coming out, I can adjust these according, or if I'm running low water, I can pull it totally out. This little part here, again, wing nuts, 5mm. I use a wing nut on the inside and outside because with two hands it's much easier to loosen this. Alright, and that just comes right off. Now this is two pieces. You have a bar on the top that is bolted down, and if I need to change the hose, this or the head or whatever, I simply just unscrew it. This pops off, and this comes through. You can see the little hole there. Comes through between the two, back up and around. I just cut a slot in there, and that holds this. This is not going anywhere. Because of these, I can readjust that whichever way that I want. This drops down and locks into place. Just that simple. Okay. This comes the tricky part. The box, you can build the box any way that you want to. I did mine tier. That way I have a lot of capacity up here. My hose sprayer's down here. Keeps all that churned up. It's not getting thrown out over the top or anything. And so everything stays nice, contained. This is the trick. Alright, with this, I've got 3 screws. The 3 screws go between an upper and lower plate. The upper plate is welded in. The lower plate is not. What this allows me to do is I can loosen these . Bring that out to here so I can work with it, and that slides right out. The front bar comes off on the front here. When this comes in, that locks into place. That's my stopper. And I've got, that's what those other screws were. You see I've got a screw here. That drops down over the screw, gets tightened, and so it is held not only from the back, but it's got a secondary securing up front. It's not going to wiggle, move, or anything else. If I need to, I can pull this out. I can make it any number of these that I want. That's just a piece of angle iron with those drilled and screwed in. This is gauged. This right here is 18 centimeters long, and this is about 10 centimeters here. And that's so that it backs right against those screws while allowing this to set right on that edge. Okay. Now the neat thing about this is you see those 3 screws underneath there. See them there? The 2 outer screws go to these. And I'll show you what happens with that. Give me a second. I have 2 pieces here. And when these get screwed in, they form a base. Okay? And they get screwed into those 2 back screws through the holes. Then, this is a 6mm gap. This is a 1.5. I've also got a 3 and a 5. And these then, it's much easier doing this with 2 hands. That again slides right into there. It will get tightened down. And now I'm running a 1.5mm. If I'm just running pure sands, 1.5 is more than enough. If I'm running small gravel or whatever, I can put in my 5. If I'm going to larger gravel and stuff, in goes my 6. And what I did is I took 18 centimeters, which is 180 millimeters. I divided that by 6, and that gave me about 30. I then divided that by 2 because I didn't want to fill the whole thing up with bars. I only wanted gaps, and I wanted each gap to be 6 centimeters width. So these are 6, those are 6, and this wound up with 15 of these because I had to leave a little space on the sides. So that's how I did that. And that's it. That goes on. This pops on. I have another one for my dredge that the nozzle just pops on and the dredge hits it and washes it down. I've got another one for my pressure hose. Same process. We'll cover that later. And that's basically it. I do not know why Goldhog does not make these. Because as you see, it's just, they make if they made attachments, you could get the whole thing, and it's much cheaper. I mean, they want 400 and something for the multi-sluice. Then they want another 1,000 or whatever for a small Highbanker. Then they want more for the attachments, and I got that with the multi-sluice when it was on sale. I got it for like $250, $300, and I have maybe another $200, maybe $300 in materials, and that's even the mats are separate because I use the mats for different things. So I built the entire thing for under €1,000, and the only thing I don't have is a clay claw, and I don't need a clay claw because I don't work in clay. I hate the stuff. Now the last thing down here, this is the matting that you get to go into washing machines and stuff. It's a dense rubber. And there's a real thick one and then a fairly thin one. I got the thin one. I got one piece and then I cut it. 30, 30, and this is like 95 or whatever. And what this does is when my gravel and stuff comes off, it's going to hit this. I can adjust this to where I want it to go. Boom, the gravel is hitting here. The water is washing here. This allows me to then just keep this cleaned off left or right and collect any fines that are left. It gets washed up in these little holes. So this is a second collection plate for me for real fine gold that may have got dumped out. The matting, if I'm working in sands or real small gravels, the matting keeps the water from flowing one way or the other, unless I can manage to get it to flow off to the sides. And it cannot take and wash out my my feet from underneath me. So I'm not always every hour or so I have to re-level. The stuff coming off here, the same thing. I can adjust this. My sandbag holds that in place. Any that comes into here gets washed, gets turmoiled, and goes to the side. If I keep this clean every once in a while, any real fine gold that's coming down is going to get trapped. And so I'm collecting at least 5 or 10% more gold that I may be losing off of these two ends, and I'm preventing my stuff from getting washed out. Okay, that's it. So I will, the box is fairly easy. It's one piece here. This piece was cut. The back was cut. It was welded. The bottom piece was welded in. And that's it, because the rest of this is open. And all of this other stuff I did using basically a press drill, a Dremel, and a pair of pliers. So I hope that you found this useful. I will, at the end of this now, add different videos on how I made some of this stuff. And let me know what you think. Here, this is the other part. This is what I was talking about before. If I want to, say if I want to run some miner's moss in here, I can pull this piece down. This piece comes out, remember, because it's segmented. Normally I would have a little bit of riffle mat in there. That would come down to fit underneath. The size screening that I'm going to use, again depending on what size gold I'm expecting. That comes up over. So that's a nice even flush when it comes over and onto here. And then I'm going to put a little bit of riffling in it. This is just a little piece bent. This is going to come down. And that will slow this water flow here so that it will catch the stuff. And I'll do the same with this one up here. That keeps this in place. It keeps it underneath the matting. It'll come here, it'll hit here, it'll cause a riffle. It'll come over, it'll cause a riffle, slow down, riffle, riffle over, and then it will hit my wave mat on the end, and then over to catch anything that gets out. Let's put this into its working unit, and so you can see how it is when it's packed up. Sorry about the lighting, people. So this takes about 30-45 minutes to totally pack away. It sets up into two bags. This one here has the Highbanker, the legs, the long mats, everything in there. The Highbanker wash box, everything fits into that one. This one contains all my tools, my additional mats, the fluid or flow box for the multi-sluice, the little box that sits on top. All of those pieces, all of that sits into here. And either of these, I can pick this one up and carry it. The other one, you see I've got straps. I can ruck it if I need to. because the mat, those rubber mats are on the top, so I can put that and it's not gigging me in the back or anything. I can haul those down. I've got a little collapsible wheelbarrow, Schubkan, that I can use to move everything. That's it. The only additional stuff would be my hoses. This is a mat that I don't really use. I use that for the demo. My hoses go on, of course, my battery, depending on which bilge pump that I'm using, and the electrical line. This here is my high-end dredge. And you will notice, the same as before, this connects right up and goes right onto that box, so it becomes a dredge instead of a Highbanker. I do not use this often, and I've got to reiterate, dredging technically is illegal in Germany. I'm not sure about the other states. The only way you can dredge is if you, one, have a permit, or two, you're on private property and the individual allows you to do it. The catch on the private property, there is no free water in Germany. The gentleman that says, yeah, you can do that, he may have the land rights. He may not own the water or the mineral rights. Okay? And you may have some guy come checking his river, seeing that and going, yo, what are you doing? And then you're suddenly into a piss load of problems because you didn't get his permission to use his water on his stream and take his gold, even if he didn't know it was there. So, when using dredges, you know, the main thing about the dredge, I was talking to the Water Bureau on this. The main thing is high pressure dredges that you need require high pressure water pumps. These use oil, they use petrol, gas, whatever, and there's always a risk of a spill. And that's why, plain and simple, it is a nature preservation reason. They do not want oil and gas getting spilled out and getting into the waterway or down into the groundwater. And so this is why essentially dredges are illegal in Germany. I am working on a 12-volt water pump. It's not going to move as much stuff. It's not going to be as large of a hose, but I'm still working on that one. I've been working on that one for a couple of years now. I want something that's going to really do the job, not these little bilge pump things that they do that lifts it 50 centimeters off the ground. So anyway, that's it. We're going to close this up, and after this will come all the sections, if any, on what's remaining of building this stuff. I hope this has been useful and informative. Now what we're going to do is make the base of the Highbanker. Now we have one piece that is bent and is open at both ends, just enough that the top one will fit snugly into it. You see there's very little gap in there. The top end is welded off. Instead of putting in a wing nut to hold my stuff on, what I'm putting in is a screw, but I've drilled a hole in it, so all I have to do is pop this into it and it will hold my mat in place. So no more losing my wing nuts, because these are attached using fishing, that metal fishing line that you can get to make leaders. So I have those attached to that so I never lose them. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to connect the two pieces. and I want to be able to put them on and put them off. So I have a 1 meter or a 2 meter. I'm not going to do any fancy flanges and stuff running out. All of that will be regulated with my skirting and with my matting. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to drill a hole on each side here. And then I'm going to put a slit that will allow this to slide up and down, because when you are readjusting, we want this to be able to adjust without binding up on this. So that means as this turns, this will face into this. So we're going to put the screws in. I'm going to see if it's going to adjust properly. The holes are drilled. You will notice these are at an angle. What this does is it allows this, if I loosen these, they set right down flat. So if I'm running it all one even level, everything is running the same level, whether it's, you know, a straight. But if I want to do an excessive bend, like take it from a 10 to a 5, by having that, this allows it to come up and down at that angle. If you do just a straight one straight up, that's not going to work that way. At this point, we have the main frame done. We have the other half cut. Everything is set. So the main body of the sluice works. The next that we've got to do is build our classifier box, which goes on top of the Highbanker. It's about 60 centimeters. And I think most are about 50. If you're using a 1 meter sluice, you want it about half the size of the sluice bed. But this is basically one piece that comes down and is bent. No, sorry, this one wasn't bent. What we did was we cut two pieces at a 30-degree angle, and then I had them weld this into place. Then inside, about 5 centimeters or so above the bottom line, see there, I had them weld me a base plate. This is where I'm going to put my shovel of dirt, and it's going to get washed and then come down the grading. All of this is done in aluminum.